You're listening to the Grind Line Podcast.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grind Line Podcast. I'm your host, Greg. You're listening to episode 344. I am here tonight with Ryan, but I also have special guest Gio on, also known as Lego Rocks 99 on YouTube. Gio, how are you doing?
Pretty good, Greg. Just wanted to say thank you to yourself and Ryan, of course, for having me on your show for the second time. We were in a call podcast from 2 years ago. Very much had positive memories of that experience. So I was very happy to hop on and happy to be here.
Been 2 years? It's been that long?
Yeah. Time has gone by quickly in the COVID/post-COVID era. So
a lot more
I had to
gray
look at
hairs
myself too. Yeah.
Time is fleeting, Ryan. And the Red Wings are slowly, hopefully, pulling themselves out of their misery, as we can see in the youthfulness that has come into this preseason. So tonight we have Gio on to talk about the preseason so far, expectations going into next season, what he's liked, as what he's seen. In the second half of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about NHL26, the most recent release in the franchise. And if you guys haven't seen, if you go over to our Twitter, we are giving away a copy of NHL26 for the PS5. All you have to do is follow us on Twitter, like the post, retweet it, and then you get a bonus entry if you sub to us on YouTube. So go over to the channel and do that. It's fun stuff. But what we're going to start off with tonight...
Crossplay.
Yeah, is that the Red Wings have played one game in the preseason so far, and they defeated the Chicago Blackhawks 3-2.
Halfway through another one as we speak.
Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks, because he played that game. And yeah, they lead the Buffalo Sabres 4-2 currently, which is good. Good showings. And that game was pretty good, the Chicago game. They dominated offensively for almost the entire thing. The Hawks looked really sloppy, did not play good defense. You had goals by Danielson, Mazur, and Finnie. You had 2 assists by MBN, an assist by Finnie, Mitchell, and Leonard. And Kosa made 15 of 17 saves for an 8-2 goals against, but that's kind of deceiving because he played a really good game. But what I want to start with is, Ryan, what was your overall thought of the game?
I mean, for being the youthful motion or youthful event for Detroit that it was, I was pretty satisfied. I ended up actually being at the game with my dad. So he texted me at like 2:30 and hey, I found a ticket for $18. So I had to one up them and get one for $17. But it was nice to see the speed of those kids in person, and they're showing it a lot even again tonight. And someone just rang one off the post. I think it was Raymond. But like Finnie, the one that we've heard so much about going back into camp, and MBN and Danielson, they're the real deal. They are fast. They played aggressive. I know it's probably a little bit of a bias because I think that's who we've talked about the most over the last several months, but seeing what they could do, the smarts, but it's not just the offensive smarts, how they looked defensively, I thought was really promising. Yes, it wasn't the greatest Blackhawks group that was out there, but I mean, they had Nazar, they had Bedard, they had Kirby Dach, they had Soderblom and net, who I mentioned looked fantastic. So it was kind of a smorgasbord roster that they went up against, but they held their own, which I think was the key factor of all that. Even though it was only, a 4-2 win, it could have been much worse because with the way Soderblom played, he denied a lot of great opportunities. But that guy just ripped one on net was Axel Pellikka. He also looked fantastic. They had a bit of a slow start, I felt like, but they got their legs quick. And then, as McClellan's been saying, they didn't let off the gas. They were go, and it was refreshing.
Yeah, 3-2 win, and it could have easily been 6-2. But Gio, what were your impressions?
Yeah, essentially similar things. You know, I wanted to give a little bit of love to Arvid Soderblom because not only was he fantastic in the game, but I think a lot of Red Wings fans have some sort of an affinity since he happens to be, Elmer's brother. Nice connection there between the Hawks and the Wings. But of course, this game, it could have easily been a lot worse for Chicago had things just gone a little bit south with the goaltending. He had to make 40-something saves, something like that. Connor Bedard, of course, was going out there scoring power play goals. But I think the biggest takeaway when it comes to Bedard and the Red Wings was the fact that Nate Danielson did such a good job at shutting him down. I think shot attempts were 7-0 or shots on goal 7-0 in Danielson's favor when they were both on the ice at even strength, something to that effect. And I think that goes back a long way to the WHL, to when Connor Bedard and Danielson were both drafted in 2023. Bedard said Danielson was the most difficult center that he'd played against in the dub that season. They happen to be good friends as well. So, of course, there is some camaraderie there. But aside Danielson, of course, people are going to talk about the points. Emmitt Finnie showed off incredibly well. Thinking about CHL draft picks, 7th-round guy. Now he's a potential spot on the wings if he's able to continue this throughout the next few preseason games. And just thinking about that, that's so crazy to me. You know, like it's rare to see a 7th-round pick make the league in general. But to see him do that just 2 years removed from being drafted is like, this is something that we haven't seen at all in the Yzerman-Yzerplan era, right?
It shows that the plan is working. I think that's the big thing. Like people, they love to bash the Yzer plan and say it's taking too long and why aren't we in the playoffs? But during games like this, like today's game against Buffalo, where now they're starting to mix it up and show that they've got some life in them, and the game against Chicago, where you see Daniel, like you said, Nate Danielson, 14 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time, and just one of the most consistent and solid two-way guys out there. Emmitt Finnie, a 7th-round pick, comes in and puts in a goal, puts up an assist, is playing really well again tonight. If he breaks in, that's an Yzerman masterclass right there. You dig in the late rounds and you find gems. We can even go as far as to say someone like he's playing tonight hasn't been super off the charts, but Amadeus Lombardi is another one. A guy who's performed extremely well in the AHL, performed well in training camp, looked really good. And he's not he's not a first 3 rounds of the draft kind of guy. It's starting to shape up. And like Ryan said, you've got the youth, you've got the speed, you've got the energy. There is good defensive players there. There's big guys that like to hit. There's big guys with offense like MBN, who scored another goal tonight. It's shaping up, and you're like Yzerman even said, he's not trying to just make the play. Like everyone would love it if we just went out and made the playoffs. What he's trying to do is build a team that can compete for a very long time. Not a dynasty, because those really don't happen anymore, but he's trying to build a Tampa that can be in the playoffs every year, or a Florida that can be in the playoffs every year. And that's the way you do it. You've got to draft well, and you've got to hit on some of these late round guys.
Yeah, I think what's crazy too, and I posted this the other day, Emmitt Finnie's from the 2023 draft guide with the elite prospects, they graded him out as an F. He was very mid in terms of his player grades, but it's the type of thing, like you mentioned, we've been looking for a guy that hits. Yes, we're 1.5 games into the preseason, but going back to camp, how he's looked even in this game alongside Larkin. Finnie almost had a beautiful goal, but Georgiev robbed him like crazy. So he's doing the things you would hope for maybe an MBN to do or a Danielson to do. And that's not even a discredit to them, because they've equally looked very well over the last couple of weeks going to camp and here. But if this is and we got another goal, if this is what if this plays out the way that we can hope for and be excited for, I think this kind of flips the plan on its head a little bit, right? In a good way, right?
I would agree with that too. And it's not even like, we talk about Emmitt Finnie, late round pick, big dub for Stevie Y. But this is kind of what happens when the Red Wings get so unlucky in the drafts the past few years. You talk about the first overall slip to 4th in 2020. Lucas Raymond, he's doing pretty well, I'd say.
Yeah, that might be okay.
Maybe, yeah, he's pretty all right. But the years after, solid first round picks, and you're just waiting to see them finally break through. Edvinson's finally becoming an impact player. We saw that towards the end of last year. Casper, of course, great impact throughout the season last year in a varying top 6 role. And then you're starting to see some of these other guys. Nate Danielson is coming for a spot. This guy wants to be on the team this year. Same thing you can say about these later round guys. This preseason and the training camp and what we had seen in the red versus white game, I'm really starting to wonder, what is the job security for a guy like Comfer or Berggren at this point, for example? You just got to think about all the guys that are bubbling under them, waiting to boil and eventually try to take those next steps and break onto the team.
The Burgers one, we kind of take that one back to last year in conversations we had. And I think we were hoping for a surprise last camp, like what we're potentially seeing with Finnie, that never kind of came to a head because Burgers, unfortunately, it's turned in kind of that fringe guy that he'll show up at times, but then nothing really comes out of it. You look at a Comfer. Is that a guy that could be potentially? I don't think it will, but do you have these guys that have that flexibility to be sent down and they can go back and forth as they needed? They can make that jump and push somebody out. We saw it defensively. Aljo, we saw Justin Hall get waived last year. So it's going to be really interesting because this might be one of the more competitive camps I think we've seen in a very, very long time.
I like the JT Compher talk, though, because I go back to when we talked last episode about McClellan's big point was like, you need to be on 100% of the time. I don't care if it's training camp. I don't care if it's scrimmages. You need to be playing with 100% intensity. That's how we're going to go into the season. And Compher went into this last preseason game, and I thought he looked at best okay. And he got a lot of ice time. And there were guys that did more with less. Like I said, Danielson had 14 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time. MBN had 16:40. Emmitt Finnie had 14 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time. And they made more with what they were given. And I think with a coaching situation the way it is now, you're right. No spot should be safe. And Yzerman said it himself too in the presser. He said, if a guy comes out and knocks on the doors and we are a better team with him on it, we'll figure out what to do. We'll waive a player. We'll make a trade. We'll make room for that player because we are trying to ice the best team possible. But the last thing I want to say on Emmitt Finnie is Byron Bader at Byron M. Bader on Twitter posted a cool graphic today. It says Emmitt Finnie, a 2023 7th round selection by the Wings, is turning some heads in preseason out of nowhere. I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but other people don't watch Red Wings preseason. The production progression the production progression year over year has been really consistent, and the summer birthday is intriguing. If a late pick beats the long odds, they often have development jumps like this post-draft, maybe. And it's a side-by-side of how Emmitt Finnie has developed and how Brandon Hagel developed. And if we can get a Brandon Hagel type player out of Emmitt Finnie, that's the absolute jackpot.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because Brandon Hagel was the guy that I thought of the most when I was watching Carter Bear play in the WHL this most recent campaign. So I'm sort of thinking here, like, yeah, stylistically, work ethic rate, production-wise, if you're starting to get similar players in the mold of Brandon Hagel breaking onto this Red Wings team, then I think Stevie Y is really building with intention here in the terms of the style of player he goes for and just the identity of the team as a whole. And speaking about that Carter Bear, just to do a little bit of a sidetrack, I want to say from his game against Chicago, you can definitely tell he was hurt towards the end of the season and potentially not even in a spot to get a proper off season's worth of training. I thought the IQ was there. I thought there were a lot of good decisions that he made. It's just, you can tell he was a little bit rusty, which is fine. 18 years old, first round pick from just a few months ago. He's not going to be a world beater right away, especially coming off of injury. But seeing similar qualities out of Emmitt Finnie, definitely a sign of optimism in my mind.
Yeah, I thought Carter Bear had a really good game given it's his first pro game, like first true pro game against big boys. And like you said, an Achilles injury, not something easy to come back from. It's a pretty major injury. And I thought he had some really good defensive plays. He had some good offensive plays. He was able to, I think he was the one that stripped a puck from Bedard to make a play at one point too. So Carter Bear, I'll like to see what he does for the rest of the preseason, but I was not worried about I was actually decently encouraged by his first pro game out there.
Still throws me off, though. I was very surprised when you told me that JT Compher had 20 minutes of ice time, because to me, yeah, I was there, so it kind of makes it a little harder to pick out who's on the ice at times if I'm not truly locked in. Tells you how much I really didn't notice him.
Ryan, he's the leader. He's the literal leader of the Red Wings in stuff per 60, meaning he's on the ice and really doesn't do anything.
This is a guy. But it just should, like, it goes to your point, though. And that's probably a good thing, too, that you prefer your defenseman as the guy that you see a lot of ice time logged and you don't have anything to say really about him because he had probably a decent night in that sense. I mean, that's not to say Comfer wasn't impactful, but I know we were looking at the game score and he was one of the lowest ones on the team. I don't think anyone's safe outside the top 6, which would be, or top 5, because there's not really who's the number 6 in that group with that first line left winger. So it really makes it interesting because if these young guys are going to be playing as well as they are up and down the ice, like, you got to do what you got to do. You already made the comment on it.
So 2 periods down, the Red Wings lead the Buffalo Sabres 5-2. Gio, I want to get your thoughts on the performance of Axel Sandin Pellikka in this game.
Yeah, so ASP, I think it's been kind of a weird past few months, I'd say, for Red Wings fans, just to see him transition from Sweden inevitably into the Grand Rapids Griffins and the AHL. I thought that in his little stint back over there towards the end of last season, he was all right. Maybe not as daring as he had been in Sweden, which is understandable given the change in ice surface, the brand new team, and the playoff stakes. Right here, though, starting things out in the games against Buffalo, I think just based off of the way he's playing here, I wouldn't be all too opposed to giving him some extra Grand Rapids time. What do you guys think about that? I think he's been reasonably okay.
He started that first game off really slow. Like you could tell it was going a little too fast for him, the game against Chicago. By the third period, I thought he was playing really well. He is so good at walking that blue line. He is so good at cycling the puck. He is going to be a master class in power play, like a power play like phenom, I think. This game, he seems to have brought it up a little bit. When he's less scared, like you said. He's throwing shots on net. I do agree he's probably going to spend most of, if not all of his time this season in the AHL, simply just to work on that speed aspect. He's not small. People like to say he's small, and he's not. But I think he just needs that little bit of extra time to adjust to playing the North American speed than it's a little, you get more open space in Sweden, more open space in international. So I think you give him this year, and then I think that he comes out of next camp and probably makes it right off rip. Ryan?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because, to your point, there's been a few times he's been caught kind of watching, and they're rushing back up ice on an offensive rush, they being Buffalo. He's recovered well. I will give him credit because of how great his skating is. He's had a couple of times where he has broken the play back up, but he's also been caught a little flat-footed, and they're able to kind of manipulate the inexperience, if you will. So that's probably what you'll see comments made about from the management team about what he should be focusing in on, like just being more aware of his surroundings on the defensive end. But offensively, he fits the bill of everything that we expected and thought we would see, because the way he can move up and down the boards, walk the blue line, he's getting shots through, which is something we haven't necessarily been familiar with at the blue line the last several years outside of Sider. So it's going to be promising in that part, but he definitely has a little bit to work on as this season will progress on the defensive side.
Yeah, I agree with that too. He's got all the tools: skating, offensively, shot selection, even IQ, passing. He's got so much skill. He just needs to know how to rein it in and apply it in this setting versus international in Sweden.
Yeah, what's nice is he likes to kind of sneak in a little bit and get off quick wristers, which you don't see a lot of defensemen do super often. And like you said, it's part of shot selection. He's just fantastic. Like high IQ, it's Yzerman, high IQ guys. And the defense will come. He's not horrible defensively, but I think it's just that extra step that he needs to get. So that's the Red Wings 3-2 win over the Blackhawks. There was a lot there. Like I said, they're leading the Buffalo Sabres right now, 5-2. 5-2 after 2 periods. The third will start soon, but we're going to take a quick break. Word from our sponsors. We'll be right back to talk a little bit about NHL 26. So stay right there. Game on. Week 1 starts now, and every touchdown brings you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. This isn't just football, it's first touchdown fireworks, anytime TD rushes, and live bets that ride every momentum shift. At DraftKings, every play is your next shot to win. Just like you can pick the Lions to win the Super Bowl and cross your fingers and hope that it happens. New customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, grab over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Your season starts now. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first bet of $5 or more. Plus $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. Limited time offer.
During our quick break, I just want to tell everyone about something that's totally changed my mornings. Strong Coffee Company. If you're like me, you love your coffee, but you also want it to actually do something for you. This is the upgrade you've been looking for. Strong Coffee isn't your average cup of joe. It's an all-in-one instant blend made for people who care about their health and performance. You're getting 15 grams of grass-fed protein, 5 grams of MCTs for long-lasting energy, and adaptogens like ashwagandha and L-theanine to help you stay calm, focused, and productive without the jitters or crash. The black blend is bold and smooth, made from organic fair trade Arabica beans, and their lattes, they've got collagen, hyaluronic acid, healthy fats, the works. It tastes amazing and helps you feel sharper, sleep better, and just show up as your best self every day. And on top of all that, they're eco-friendly too, so you can feel good about what you're putting in your body and how it's made. Check them out at strongcoffeecompany.com and use our code GRINDLINE. That's strongcoffeecompany.com, promo code GRINDLINE at checkout for 20% off. That's GRINDLINE for 20% off your order. Give it a shot. I think you're going to love it. And we're back. And in segment 2, we are going to talk about NHL26 and kind of the evolution of the NHL franchise as a whole the past few years. And we've got our games. We've played a little bit. I'm going to start with the resident NHL expert in Gio and kind of what are your thoughts between 25 and 26 so far? What do you like and what are you not liking?
So that's a pretty great question. I appreciate you calling me the NHL expert here. I have been using the video games as the background for my videos on YouTube for the past 7 years or so. It's been a pretty consistent thing. So I've played all the games to varying levels, some a little more than others. But I'd say that, and this is kind of weird to articulate, but the gap between the games from 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, I feel like the 25 to 26 gap, gameplay-wise, has been maybe one of the smallest gaps in between versus some of the other gaps of the other games, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. For one, I like the speed of the game. I like kind of the physics with the movement and the skating. I like that it takes a little bit of extra time to turn versus last year. And also some of the skating mechanics were really nice too. But what I noticed with the way that EA marketed this game in particular was that a lot of their emphasis seemed to have been on overhauling Hockey Ultimate Team and Be a Pro. They did a lot of changes to both of these in terms of the format, in terms of how things move. The menus could be a little bit quicker still. I think that's been a complaint for a lot of fans the past few games here. But aside from that, I do like some of the changes they've made to Hockey Ultimate Team. I've heard a lot of good things about Be a Pro. Franchise mode, guys, kind of unfortunate because it doesn't seem like there's been too much of a change there. But this game, with the amount of progression they do every single year, I'm not really expecting any huge improvements to all the modes all at once. Taking things a step at a time, I think this is a pretty all right step.
I think to that point, like it makes it almost frustrating sometimes that it's a brand new game, like sale. You know what I mean? It's not trying to. I know Smitty is probably hearing this and saying thank you right now, because it's like this could be, maybe it's a title update rather than a full game release. But I will agree, the skating physics, the way that they've changed it, it's definitely tricky, and it will penalize you, hurt you, if you try to move a guy from one direction to the other too quickly and they have a poor agility, because you're going to see a fun new animation and then basically wiping out. I mean, I like what I do most of my playing on World of Shell. They've simplified the menus in there, which I definitely appreciate. You don't have to now pay money and get a lot of the microtransaction stuff is now out. You can buy more points for yourself if you really want to. I wouldn't, because you can unlock them just by playing. But I like how they've worked the graphics. The replay systems on in-game is way better. And I really appreciate that you can actually see what's happening with your guy now when something nice happens or a goal. But as a whole, it's be a pro. The menus, that's cleaned up a bit. I like how they did put a new focus on that. I like the be a pro stuff as well, and going through there, go through the international play, still got the junior play. It's a nice change, and I think that a lot of folks have appreciated that to this point. But this one I feel like has been a bit more of a learning curve in terms of just the overall feel of play. It seems a bit slower and more direct, even though there's still guys are very fast if you get your players set up right. But you have to be much more specific with whether it's passing, skating, and your shots, because the goalie movement, I think, is improved. There's still some things that could be tweaked in terms of post to post coverage, but it's pretty smooth as a whole in gameplay, I think, and it's nice.
I think I can talk to Be a Pro a bit, because that's what I generally try and jump into first. And it is quite a bit more immersive. There's a lot more. You talk to your manager a lot more. You do press interviews a lot more. It ups either your brand or your likability with your teammates or management. But in between, you gain energy, and you can spend energy on increasing your reputation with management, or increasing your brand awareness, or increasing your popularity with your teammates. So you're able to kind of control a little bit more how you develop your actual player, and what you like. Do you want to go out there and be a guy that's just all about him? Like, you want to be the Trevor Zegras TikTok kid who just wants to be all about the brand, or you just want to be a guy that's all focused 100% on your team. So the Be a Pro, I think, there's a little more meat to it. I feel like previously it's felt a little empty. It's sim to next game, and then play until your season's done. But now it's a little more, how do I want to answer questions a certain way? How do I want to spend my energy a certain way to move stats up, or traits, or likability and brand and stuff? So I think it's a little bit cooler. But going back to the point about speed of the game, do we think that has anything to do? Because this season, like we mentioned before, they started using NHL Edge stats on players. So the game is directly connected to their performance on the ice. And now whether that's going to be kind of affected by quicker updates to the game, or whenever a roster change moves in, they're going to edit everyone based on their edge stats. Do we think that maybe like, hey, I feel a little slower because in reality, this player that I'm playing is actually a little bit slower?
There could be. Yeah. I mean, we've yet to see any true incorporation of that as a live update, because of course the season hasn't began yet. But even as you're playing in like World of Chal, for example, I've noticed this a lot in my games. As you continue throughout a game, you'll see like on the screen, here's your edge face-off percentage probabilities. Like, oh, this guy who's been winning more draws has a higher chance of winning versus the other guy. And it's just stuff like that. You know, they slowly started to incorporate some other statistics starting from last year. I think last year was the first year where they started to show like, oh, there's a one-timer on goal. It's a 95.2 mile per hour slap shot, and it'll show that on the boards. So now that they're starting to put in a little bit more of that, it adds to kind of the realism as well as the impact that the game feels when you're holding that controller and you're seeing your guy whiz by. So I'm also really interested in seeing how real life NHL performance is going to affect the minor updates and the statistical performance in the game.
Yeah, I like the call out about how they're bringing that to the in-game presentation. What's real fun that we see a lot, especially on Chell, is the threat percentages of a particular shot when the goalie makes a save. Like I know there's one for instance, was only 36% threat that the goalie came across, made it look easy. But then he made a save on another one last night. I think it was like 89% threat chance, meaning more often than not, probably going to score the goal, but you got robbed of it. So there's just a small presentation things that they brought with that, but it's going to be like with the edge stats coming in, I almost hope that doesn't become too much of a crutch in terms of really separating out what you're going to see, because you go out there with McDavid, you should feel like you're playing with a McDavid, right? How that corresponds over the year, it's going to be intriguing. I haven't seen really too much posted as to how they plan to incorporate that as the season progresses, or if it's going to be like a one-time thing, maybe then midway through the season. I don't know.
Well, to me, that's got to be going forward. You would think the natural evolution of sports games. Every league tracks stats like this. Now, football started with it. They get extreme advanced stats. Now, hockey's got some pretty extreme advanced stats.
Soccer, they're tracking.
And with cloud gaming and the way that they're able to instantly upload things to servers, if Microsoft has access to the NHL's Edge database that's consistently updated on a nightly basis with the tracker that's in all the players' equipment, they could do nightly updates if they wanted to, just based on cloud pushes to systems. So I think that's kind of where you might see games go in the future, is if you're playing today, your Dylan Larkin may perform different now than he performs next week based on his actual on-ice stats on a nightly basis, which I think could be a really, that's a super cool thing. Like, that would be really awesome, where you're like, oh, man, Dylan Larkin sucked tonight. That's because he had a bad game the past 3 games, so I might as well pick a different team to play today. I think that would be a really cool evolution in sports games if they could do just quick updates based on current player data.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I just kind of wonder what's the limit with that, you know? Because you can talk about like top stars, Dylan Larkin has a bad night, or goodness forbid, McDavid has an off night or whatever. But there are however many players on 32 NHL teams, and you just got to wonder, do they update everybody, or do they do they say like, oh, McDavid had the biggest change from what he's normally like, so we'll give a change in the video game to him? I just wonder like how far their resources would go and how often they'd be thinking about this stuff.
EA makes $1 billion a year.
Yeah, but how much of that makes it to NHL? That's the question.
It could be nice.
It's a major platform game. It's major sport, one of the 4 majors in the US, and you got to think that it sells quite well in Canada. But I don't know. That's why I was curious if maybe it's like every month or 2 months type thing, where they sneak it in with one of the tuner updates, their gameplay tuner. So
that's possible. Well, Gio, I want to thank you for coming on tonight, and I want to give you the floor to plug what you got going on, where people can find you, just what's happening in your world.
Absolutely, Greg. Really appreciate that. Of course, big shout out to you and Ryan for allowing me on the Grind Line podcast one more time.
Anytime.
But if you're interested, I run a YouTube channel, Lego Rocks 99. I do hockey commentary style videos on news, rumors, updates, just whatever it is I find interesting. And it has been a blast covering the Red Wings the past few years as well. I really got into this team mostly because I would make videos about their draft selection. Really, it was the Moritz Seider video in 2019. Because I was a Seider fan in that time frame. So I was really happy to see the Wings take him. And it has been such a joy to follow the Yzerplan throughout. So if you're interested in anything that I have to say, then you can head over to youtube.com, just search Lego Rocks 99. You'll probably find some Red Wings, Canucks, or Canadiens videos on there. Because I am in Vancouver. I'm a primary Vancouver Canucks fan. And I'm sitting here hoping that Quinn Hughes decides to stay here inevitably. But of course, we don't know for sure, and we probably won't know for a year. And I know you're looking at that Red Wings
it's
logo.
It's not going to happen, Ryan.
You got the Michigan jersey here. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Wings had their chance to take Quinn, but we don't need to get into that now.
Don't go there.
Nope.
We had a really good episode, Gio. Don't do it.
Where can people find you on social?
You can find me on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, at LR99Gaming. And then on YouTube, my URL is Lego Rocks 99 Gaming. But if you just go to youtube.com/at Lego Rocks 99, that'll also lead you there too. YouTube's done some pretty weird things with the way they label channels.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Ryan, socials?
Already Ryan33.
And you can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You follow the Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. We can thank the Hockey Podcast Network for hosting us and spreading us around. Vintage Detroit, which is the only place you should get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on, and where we have an exclusive t-shirt collection. If you go there, you click on the Keep It Local tab, click on the Grindline Podcast, you will find our stuff there. And I am currently have Illustrator open with 3 different tabs of ideas that I have. So more designs will be coming this year. And yeah, you can follow us on YouTube as well. Go to youtube.com, search the Grindline Podcast, sub to us, and then turn on notifications. And you'll get notified whenever an episode goes live. But once again, Gio, thank you for joining us. And that is going to do it for us tonight. You stay classy, Hockey Town.